The Family Computer, or Famicom for short, was the Japanese version of the Nintendo Entertainment System. The two models had subtle differences, such as the controllers that are hardwired into the Famicom. Also, the Famicom had vastly superior sound effects due to an external sound chip that couldn't be utilized in the American NES. The Famicom even had an add-on that could read discs called the Famicom Disk System. Some would say this was a pointless accessory, since it only allowed you to save in games like Zelda and Metroid. While the NES had its own boons, such as detachable controllers and a slicker design, the Famicom was still a much sweeter deal. It even had a huge library of games that were never released in the US. On this episode of O.G.A.P, we're going to take a look at 8 of the more exceptional Famicom games that never graced our American Nintendos. Some have even been translated by fans, whose names will appear in the credits. First up is Akumaju Special Boku Dracula-kun, or as it was titled in the Game Boy version that was released in the US, Kid Dracula. The gameplay is fairly simple. You'll navigate linear side-scrolling levels as the son of Dracula, shooting fireballs and learning new spells as you go. The game obviously pokes fun at Castlevania, with the first level design looking startlingly familiar. Even the music of the first level sounds familiar. Now you might be thinking, why didn't this game make it to the US? Well, it's probably because the US frowns upon the KKK. I would seriously like to know what Konami's designers were thinking when they put this in the game. Shame on you, Konami. Next up is Zombie Hunter. The concept is a lot like Ghosts and Goblins, but the gameplay is more like a cross between a side-scroller and a turn-based RPG. As you walk through levels, you'll encounter enemies that have to be dispatched before you can move on. These encounters feel a lot like turn-based battles, but with no break in the action. And just like in real turn-based battles, you will eventually take damage. You just have to try your best to keep the amount you take to a minimum and pray for medicine or food to drop. You have a menu for items, weapons, and equipment, and you even earn experience and gold through battling. This side-scrolling / turn-based RPG concept is fresh, and probably the only one on the Nintendo. Definitely a game that you should try. New Ghostbusters 2. This game was developed by HAL Labs, the guys that made Kirby and Super Smash Bros. It's sadly ironic that the one good NES Ghostbusters game never made it to the US. In New Ghostbusters 2, you'll take an overhead perspective and hunt down ghosts with a partner. You immobilize ghosts with your beam with the A button, and deploy your partner's ghost trap with the B button. It's simple, effective, and instantly enjoyable. The only problems I've noticed is that the game plays the memorization card way too often. Sometimes you'll enter a room only to be blindsided by a desk to the face or a hiding ghost. Also, probably the most disappointing issue, the game has no two-player option. Think about how perfect it would have been. You stopping ghosts and your friend capturing them. That would have rocked. For our next contestant, we have Wanpaku Kokun no Gourmet World. Just your typical wacky side-scroller with food trying to kill you. You play as a chef that attacks enemies with a headbutt. Okay, this chef is one tough muchacho. You can also pick up household items to use as weapons, such as a spoon and dishes. The only issue with this game is that enemies move extremely fast, so it's sometimes hard to get the timing right on attacks so you don't swing too early or too late. Moving on, we have Maho Densetsu 2 Daimashikyo Gallios. Boy, that's a mouthful. Dungeon crawler would be the best way to describe this game. You navigate your way through different levels in a dungeon, collecting various items and gaining experience along the way. You can switch between two characters also, which is nice for when one has low health. If you enjoy a good slog through a dungeon, then this game is for you. And now for something completely different. Over Horizon is a shoot-'em-up of epic proportions. It's basic, with A for shooting forward, B for shooting backward, and pressing both at the same time for rotating your options. The attention to detail is spectacular, and the music isn't bad either. And if all this wasn't enough, there's even an edit mode that lets you customize your weapons and options. It is an absolute travesty that this game was never released in the States. It would have been an instant classic. Summer Carnival 92 Rekka. Strange name. This has got to be one of the most fast-paced and difficult shooters ever. It's as if the game was made, and just before being put into production, someone turned up the speed by 50%. If you're hardcore enough to keep up with it, you'll enjoy great graphics and a large array of power-ups. I swear though, Toho is easier than this, and that's really saying something. And to top it all off, we have Yume Penguin Monogatari. And the theme of this game is weight loss. That's right. You play as a penguin that has a weight problem. When your girlfriend leaves you to be with another penguin, you decide it's time to drop those pounds and win her back. As you waddle and fly your way through levels, you'll have to dodge food and take weight loss medicine to get thinner and more powerful. The bar at the bottom of the screen keeps track of your weight, and each time you pass a mark, your appearance and attack will change. If your weight is at the required level, designated by a heart, by the end of a level, then you can proceed to the next level. However, if you're overweight, then you will have to repeat the level. It's an interesting system, and it works very well. Everything about the game is perfectly tuned and responsive. This is another game that would have done well here in the States. Plus, it sends a message to overweight kids that happen to be playing. Want to lose weight? Go on an adventure. And there you have it. This is just 8 of the more exceptional games that were only released for the Japanese Famicom. For whatever reasons, be it funding, ethical, or just plain ignorance, these games were not saw fit to be released in the US. However, if you would like to enjoy them for yourself, you can find everything you need at emuparadise.org and numerous other websites. Thank you for watching this episode of Old Games for Awesome People. Also, don't miss Part 2 sometime in the future. We'll take a look at more excellent games for the Famicom.